I spent the last 100 days in Valheim's hardest settings, and I learned, died, and tried to make it as far as I could in that 100 days. Before we get started, I am currently trying to make it to 10,000 subscribers, and if you guys could help me get there, that would mean a lot to me, and thank you guys so much for watching. It took me 8 whole episodes of about hour-and-a-half long episodes to get to day 100, so I posted those every single day, and now we're going to go back through them, recap everything that happened, how it impacted the future, what I felt, what I learned, and also like what happened outside the videos and kind of stuff like that. And if you guys really like a certain part of it that maybe you didn't see or you didn't have time to watch all of them, all of the videos will be linked and timestamped with different parts that happened, so you guys will be able to go back, find the little parts you want to watch, and we can recap everything before we move on in the series. So, starting with the first episode, we just spawned into the world like nothing was different. And I don't think I knew how difficult of a challenge I had gotten myself into. I'm not even sure that after 100 days that I still really understand how difficult some parts of this are going to be. But I had a couple tips. I've done permadeath, I've done a lot of hard modded, and I felt like I could at least take the challenge on. And there's a chance I don't actually beat it, which makes it honestly more exciting in my opinion. And because it felt like a normal playthrough, at least at first, I decided to just go at it like it was normal playthrough, really not do anything different. I do have no map, so I was trying to get the direction of where the first boss would be, and I don't know, like make sure trees didn't fall on me, like little stupid stuff. But realistically, stakes were pretty low at this point because it's not permadeath, and if I do die, then it's okay because I still have an opportunity to respawn, get my stuff back, or not get my stuff back, but remake my stuff. And in this case, it really wouldn't have been much for me. I was super optimistic for this challenge until I got hit for the first time by anything, and that even just a boar or a grayling could stagger my character and honestly probably two-shot me with the base stuff that you get. That was terrifying. Normally you could take like 5 hits from a boar and be perfectly fine, but to know that a grayling or boar at 0 stars could absolutely destroy me, and the fact that there were a higher chance for things to level up, meaning there were 1 and 2 stars of everything walking around everywhere, that was terrifying. The only good part to this entire thing that I had noticed so far was that most of the deer were also 1 and 2 star, and I had found some pretty early lucky resources like beehives and stuff that were gonna make it a little bit easier. Now, as far as preparation and planning was going, I was trying to go as slow as possible, pick up as many things as I would absolutely need, and just prepare as good as I possibly could to get all of the stuff for all of the workbench upgrades, prepare for what weapons I was going to use, try and get weapons as quickly as possible, and make as much armor as I could, even if it was just the deer hide armor. But that first hit really rocked me, and I still had no clue where the first boss was, still had no base, and it was getting close to night, and that was kind of terrifying, because I had a feeling that if it got down to night in this playthrough, that it would absolutely be death, even in the meadows. For the first couple days, I decided to just go ahead and set up a tiny little camp in the direction that I knew that Eikthyr was, and just head out on a little expedition to try and find it, try and figure out my surrounding area, maybe find some more beehives, some loot, and anything like that. And it was not really that long before I ended up finding the boss location, and just kind of remembering generally where it was at. It was pretty close to my base, and I could always go back to altar if I needed to. And I did not know it at this point, but this base was actually going to be where our main base was for the entire 100 days, which is pretty awesome, and it was actually pretty well placed. After that, I went to the Black Forest to get core wood, which was one of the most dangerous parts of the series so far, as there was a very high chance that anything in the Black Forest, even a rock from a Grey Dwarf, could probably one-shot me or get me very close to death. But with that core wood, my finewood bow was halfway done, so all I had to go do was knock down a couple of birch trees using other trees, roll the logs around into each other until I had a nice little beautiful finewood bow, as that would give me probably the best chance I could at killing Eikthyr. Heading back over towards the Black Forest for a second time to get core wood for a finewood bow upgrade, to get it as far as I could for the boss fight, as well as my progression into the Black Forest, I stumbled upon a troll right on the edge of the Black Forest. It was not going to be a safe fight, but it was going to be very possible, and getting it done would mean that I was a lot safer later in the playthrough. So if I could just get this one troll killed outside of the Black Forest so nothing else would really intervene other than maybe a boar or a grayling, I would be able to get my first piece of troll hide, wear it for the boss fight, keep myself alive, and also use it for my early progression into the Black Forest, as well as stay over here, get my core wood, get my finewood bow upgraded, and probably do the most prepared Eikthyr fight I have ever done. I started off the Eikthyr fight like I would any other time with this boss or elder, which is with campfires. These are a great way to knock its health down right as it spawns, normally also with a little bit of a stealth bonus as it doesn't really see you when it spawns in, and it just does a ton of fire ticking damage. You can use it for the whole fight, but I always just like to use it as the start. The finewood bow was great, the troll hide was awesome, but it's still, even with troll hide and deer hide, that was a little bit upgraded, still hit very hard. And though I only got hit once during the entire boss fight, it still set the tone for how a lot of the series would go, as in I cannot get hit if I am not extremely overprepared, and the further that I go into the game, the less that being overprepared even helps. This getting hit by each boss at least once would be actually an entire trend for the entire 100 days, which is kind of crazy, but it's also a really good comparison thing because I was about as overprepared as I could be for each boss, so we get to have a decent representation of how much overpreparedness falls off in helping you over the entire course of the progression of this playthrough. No matter how scared I was, no matter how underprepared I felt after that first boss fight, it was time to head into the Black Forest, and though I had a little bit of troll hide, I got a rude awakening of how powerful everything would be each time I progressed into a new biome. It was something that I even fear in a normal Valheim playthrough, that transition between biomes when you still have last biome's gear, you haven't got a chance to grind anything, and anything that would be considered powerful for that biome could absolutely destroy you. But this would be the easiest of the transitions between any biomes. This was just the transition to the Black Forest, but even a 1-star skeleton smacking me would have been a 2-shot, and that's with the troll hide. Had I not gotten lucky with that troll, that could have been my death right there, and I would have had to restart already. This was also not nearly as powerful as stuff as I could experience in the Black Forest. This made me extremely scared for the burial chambers, extremely scared for any exploration, and it made me just realize how truly difficult even just the Black Forest was going to be, and it was really worrying me how difficult some of the later biomes like the Mistlands and Ashlands would be. The rest of episode 1 was spent finding the Elder location, clearing that one burial chambers for a couple of cores just to smelt some metal. If I could just get 5, I would be fine for at least the beginning of the playthrough. On top of that, we found a couple of troll caves, but we weren't going to do them this episode. We got some copper, mined away, got some stuff back to base, got some tin, and just we're kind of preparing to make that first little jump into the bronze tier, as well as I got a little base set up with area for a farm, even if we couldn't use it this episode, and that was pretty much where we ended off the first episode. Terrified, a little bit undergeared for the Black Forest, and literally scared to leave the meadows. I did not ever want to leave the meadows again after experiencing some of the stuff that I did in the Black Forest. 2-star Grey Dwarfs, 1-star skeletons with bows were all almost one-shots, and any mistake or any lack of food, which I realized was going to be a really big thing at this point, could absolutely get me killed. Starting with episode 2, there was a couple things that I wanted to talk about at the very beginning of the episode, as well as to get some metal smelted up. Now first, my feeling going into the second episode, I didn't expect this series to catch so many people's attention. I had done a hardcore series, but it was on the hardcore death setting a while ago, and it did the same thing. It just blew up way bigger than I thought it was going to be, and that's where I got the inspiration to come back and do this series. But in that first episode, support was somebody that decided to give me super thanks on YouTube, which was the first time I had ever gotten that, and it was kind of special to me, so I decided to put their name on a sign on the base, and I did not know that that was going to become a thing that happened throughout the series, but it's really awesome, and it was really just cool to see. Like I said, it's something like I had never experienced, which was just awesome. On top of that, it was time to start planning out how this base was going to get a little bit bigger. I realized the food problem and how big it was going to be, and I had a lot of cooked meat and stuff, but I was going to need to make those carrot dishes and get as many different types of food in my inventory as I could and learn to balance them for this playthrough specifically. But the first thing I have to do if I want to plant anything, make any food, or do any of that is to actually smelt some metal. So we started with that. Now, we had our metal for a boat, we had a little base marker made, and we had the Elder direction that I needed to go, though Elder is normally in this series or in a no-map playthrough one of the hardest bosses to find because of the cover that the Black Forest puts over the world, how disorienting and same everything looks as you're walking around, so we probably weren't going to be heading there anytime soon. I honestly only wanted to head there once I felt like I could actually fight it, which was nowhere near now. However, if we wanted to use this as an alternative for the cart, as the metal was just down the water a little bit, I would be able to stack metal inside of this, fill it up, and bring a lot more back than I would normally, and it would be a little bit safer to bring it back and forth rather than running through a bunch of Black Forest. The other thing that I was starting to do, because people had mentioned it in my last series, as well as it was working a little bit for me, was just to build some paths back to my base. Every time that I got lost, I kind of ended up wandering back to one of these, and it ended up being one of the more helpful things that I did, and while it did take a while to make them, especially when I had pretty low stamina, it was still a fairly useful tool that I was able to utilize for most of the first 100 days. It was time also for me to go back to the burial chambers. This single smelting thing set up where I had to switch back and forth between a kiln and a smelter was not cutting it for trying to make every single thing that I needed, as well as I also wanted to just go hunt trolls, but I would feel much better about that if I had an upgraded axe, maybe a buckler or something. It wouldn't help much, and I probably didn't know at the time how little it would have actually helped if I had that, but either way, no matter what I was doing, I needed more bronze. So the best way to do that was to get a better smelting setup. Now, I spent the entire rest of this episode getting as much copper as I could, as much tin as I could, using the boat to boat it back and forth, and killing an absolute ton of trolls. I think we got in this episode to level 3 troll hide. If not, we will make it there next episode. But it was pretty much just elder preparation and black forest progression on as slow of a base as I could go. I just wanted to not get killed by anything, keep myself safe, and get as highly geared as I could for elder, which was a difficult task that took an entire episode. And we'll see that as I get further into the series, that progressing into biomes can take a really long time when it's on these settings. Episode 3 was consistent on just 2 main things. The first one was just food and metal. We're just doing food and metal, trying to get everything upgraded. We had a mace, a buckler, and a bronze axe. We had our boat. We needed to make the cultivator, or we made the cultivator. We needed so much bronze, and we needed to upgrade a lot of this stuff, as well as, who knows, what if we needed a second boat in case we died or something. So it was going to be good to have extra. That being said, though, it took a lot of time to do that, but we had a better smelting setup now. We were just kind of waiting for the carrots to farm out so I could, 1, get more seeds from them, but 2, also start to make some of those dishes. And this was all still in preparation for elder, which was the second thing. Finally, after gearing all of our troll hide, planting as many things, and getting as many different types of food as I could from the Black Forest here, it was time to go back to the original dungeon that I had found the Elder Stone in, get the location for it, and start to align it with the tree so I could begin to head that direction. Now, like I said, finding elder can be a really difficult task, and I didn't have necessarily the food to be out for days and days and days, maybe 3 at max, plus the elder fight. So that being said, I either needed to find it quick or keep my bearings so I could come back, but this was our first little journey off of our island with no map to try and find elder. Lucky enough for me, on the first island I stopped on, both for night and because there was a few dungeons and a few areas where their buildings could have the elder stone, I walked inside of one of the burial chambers to an elder stone that flicked around really quickly in a certain direction, which normally means you're fairly close to it. With that direction, I marked it with my build piece, headed that way, and elder was sitting right in the Black Forest where I had decided to stop at, only 1 or 2 islands away from spawn and where our base was at, which was really, really nice. This was one of the closest elders I had gotten, and it was a really lucky find because I almost passed it up, and had I not stopped here to check for stones to see if I was still going the right direction, there was a good chance I would have passed this elder for good. But again, we still have to actually prepare for it. It was raining, I needed a rested area, and I had forgot my ancient seeds at home, which means I needed to find them here, as well as deal with a couple of trolls, try and make sure there wasn't anything around the area for elder, and try and stop any interruptions from the fight before they happened. Again, just like with Eikthyr, the idea was to chip off a good bit of health from the Elder with campfires to make the fight a lot shorter and to give me a way better chance at getting at this. I had 240 flame arrows, a bunch of flint head arrows, a decently upgraded axe, a buckler, fully upgraded troll hide for what I could get right now, and this was about as prepared as I could possibly be, but that did not mean it was going to be easy. Also, something that I felt was extremely overkill but also necessary for Elder was healing meads. I almost never take these to Elder, but we did have some with us this time because it was going to get very dangerous, and I had a feeling that if I got hit, it might not be a one-shot, but if it wasn't, I was going to need to recover quickly, as those elder vines and the roots coming out of the ground can be very dangerous. And just as the same in the first fight, I did get hit 1 single time. It clipped off so much of my health, and had I been hit by the entire attack, there's no way I would have lived through it, but the decent food that I had, as well as the armor, kept me alive through the entire elder fight, getting us our swamp key, our elder head, and the ability to start to head towards the swamp. But heading towards the swamp was not going to be as easy as it sounded. I was going to have to worry about serpents, which that doesn't sound that bad. Everybody always has to worry about those, but when they do double damage, including to structures, that was going to be really dangerous on a boat with just a fine wood bow and not that strong of arrows yet or anything to deal with a possible serpent. The only good thing I did find from this was I did find a swamp as I was leaving Elder that looked somewhat promising, had a meadows next to it for me to stack up at, but I had no clue what it had inside of it, if it was worth going to, or if it was going to be safe. And quite honestly, the Draugrs were going to be terrifying. Wraiths could absolutely one-shot me, and abominations were not even a question. While I did go back to base first to re-gear a little bit, set down the Elder Head and get a little bit more food, as well as sleep through the next night, we did head out to the swamp this episode, and I was greeted by a 1-star Draugr right off rip, which I knew in Trollhide would likely one-shot me. But we did see some swamp crypts, we had some leeches, we had a bunch of opportunities to get both the swamp food and some iron, and the idea wasn't necessarily to get a ton of iron this run, just to get enough to make a stone cutter, a boat, and maybe like a pickaxe or a mace, as well as a couple of the swamp foods and the turnips so that I could start planting them back at base. Honestly, as much time as I could spend at base, farming, chilling out, and just slowly progressing through different things, getting as much gear as I could, that was going to be the best opportunity possible. The first run of the swamp was very dangerous, it was very terrifying, but it was very, very helpful. We got the plants we needed, a bit of iron, and we were able to head back to base completely safely. I think really the only thing that I necessarily messed up was the fact that I did not come with a very prepared inventory. The boat was full with the iron that I wanted to bring back and a couple of other things, and I had no room in my inventory. Really, after Elder, I hadn't cleared it at all, which was leaving me in a really shitty position to not be able to bring back nearly as much stuff as I wanted or needed to prepare for a better swamp run. But I still have Black Forest food, I still have a decent amount of stuff to do back at base, and I do think that next swamp run would be a bit more prepared, but I had no clue what it would be because this was very close to the end of the episode. Also, at the end of this episode, we added more people to the Super Thanks wall, which again, as I said, was becoming a thing, which was really awesome to see. We had a bit of a bigger farm area, we could plant some turnips in it that would be ready for next episode. We were able to make meads as well as the actual cauldron foods, and the only thing that we were really looking at needing, besides some progression into the swamp, was maybe a couple of boar to tame and a bigger base, because the base we had as well as our storage situation was getting pretty rough. From here is where the episodes, they don't slow down, but they do start to get a lot more focused on one thing, which is going to make these segments a little bit shorter. So these episodes were the same length, but they were much more focused on single tasks. This one specifically was finding bone mass, building the base. Now, that was a lot of stuff for the time, but we didn't end up doing all of it, so a little bit of a spoiler. The base was the first thing that I wanted to do. I now had the stone cutter with a bit of iron that I had brought back from last episode, and a lot of core wood and wood that I had been saving up, so it was time to just kind of make that storage situation better, get a better room for crafting areas, and turn where that old base was into more farm area, get it squared off, and I had a boar taming pen, a boar taming, and we were gonna head back to the swamp today, but if I didn't get to, if all I got was the base set up, it was gonna be just fine, because the base was gonna be really important, the farm was super important, and processing the metal was gonna take a while anyway, so I was gonna have to be back here for a while, but that metal did get us the stone cutter, the boat, and the pickaxe, which was both helpful in building the base, but also was going to help us quite a bit when we got back to the swamp, and we got our bone mass stone, so we could actually go look for not only the swamp, but for bone mass. Realistically, I knew that today I likely wouldn't be able to kill bone mass, but I could head that direction, there would likely be more swamp, and who knows, maybe I would find it, and even if I couldn't do it yet, knowing where it was and following the swamp crypts around it for a bunch of iron would still be a good idea. The swamp I had previously visited the day before was pretty much out of iron, and there was really no reason to go back there, and while I spent a tiny bit of time there, I decided that it was time to move on to a new one. Now I had two options. I could punch through the swamp on a little river that would go towards the direction bone mass was having me point, or I could end up going across the river to where there was another section of swamp. Today I decided to punch through the river, but I promise we'll go to the other side of the swamp at some point, as that is actually where the bog witch ended up being at. Now, we had to actually punch through the plains here as well. That river went through a plains, avoid some death mosquitoes, but eventually we made it to a further part of the swamp that had a couple of swamp crypts at it and was going to be enough iron for us to make the armor we wanted and make the weapons we wanted, and even if we couldn't get it fully upgraded, it would give us a really good start. And this was out pretty far, meaning that if we did get another bone mass stone, we could get a direction on where it might be. That run was pretty decent, but it didn't get me anything that I really needed. I had some more iron to bring back to base, which I would spend the rest of the episode smelting, making into stuff, and just kind of hanging out around base farming and getting a boar, but it didn't give me the bone mass stone. It didn't give me really anything that I needed other than that little bit of iron, so next episode we're going to have to head out and hope we have better luck. Episode 5, we had probably one of the weirdest episodes that I hope we have for the entire series. It wasn't the weirdest out of the 8, but I would probably give it second place. We headed back out to the swamp, this time to not punch through the river, but to go to the other side where we could see maybe there was something we could find, maybe there was some swamp crypts, and it did look like a decent sized swamp. Now over there were a few swamp crypts, but I also saw in the distance a nice little shining dome of the bog witch, which is a really good opportunity for us to get Ratosk meads, a bit of more options for foods, some taming potions, and some other stuff later game that we can come back to, but it's also somewhere that we can sell all of our tradable stuff for just coins to keep in our boat in case we run into another trader, which will also take up less space in our boat. This iron run was able to get us another bone mass location, which didn't help that much because it's pretty close to the other one, and a whole ton of iron that I spent most of the episode hanging out at base, smelting, organizing, and making into armor and weapons. This episode got very odd though. I felt like I was completely ready for bone mass. I had the poison resistance meats, I had the food I needed, the upgraded mace, and all of the armor that I wanted. And I headed out in the bone mass direction to a bunch of swamps that looked like they really should have been it. But once I hit the Mistlands after going through plains and all sorts of other dangerous areas, once I started to hit an absolutely impassable wall of Mistlands, I felt like, well, maybe I had gone too far. But it was really confusing because I was going in the exact direction that I felt like I should have been. It was way closer to the end of the episode than I wanted it to be, and I ended up having to log off with all of my new gear in the fog at the edge of the mist in a troll cave where I had no clue where I was, no clue where bone mass was, and was gonna have an interesting start to episode 6. And that troll cave was where I started episode 6, completely confused, wanting bone mass still, but running out of food and resources to be able to do so, as well as I had to account for the fact that I didn't exactly know where I was or how far it was back to base. I would be able to find it because I had been tracking the tree pretty well and had a good idea, but if it was storming or something, I could get very off track, and again, I needed to keep my health at the highest it could be with my best food at all times, because anything small, even just a stray arrow from a high star Draugr, could absolutely destroy me. But there was one more swamp in the distance that I wanted to head to for the day before I decided to give up on the bone mass fight, because I did still have all my gear, I did have a bunch of food on me, and if I could get to it in time, even if it took me a few days to prepare for it, it would be a good thing. We could get it done and we could head back to base and forget about it. There was a ton of swamp crypts on this island, so more iron and a bunch of extra stuff to bring back would be awesome, but the biggest thing that I was able to find while hiding in one of these swamp crypts at night was the bone mass stone, this time flicking me a much stronger direction, making me feel like I was much closer, as that's the same thing the elder stone had done to me when I was right next to it. Heading and following it before it became completely night and completely dangerous led me to the bone mass spawner. Now I had the stuff for it, I had everything I needed, but I needed to go back to the boat and possibly see if I could move my boat over there and make sure I had my inventory set, my everything set to where I could actually do this fight, because I knew it was going to hit hard. I had to strategize, was I going to just take the poison with a poison mead, or just put on a poison mead and ignore it, and just try and get around as many different things as I could, as many different damage sources, destroy all the spawners around it, and just really make sure that this bone mass fight could not be interfered with by anything. For bone mass itself, I decided that I was going to put the poison mead on, but still try and stay out of that poison cloud. Not because I was really worried about the poison, but if my health was maybe a quarter down, then if I got hit by bone mass, that may not be enough to live through it. I had no idea how hard bone mass would hit, but the higher the health I had, I decided the better it was going to be. Deal with the spawns and other surrounding enemies as I was waiting for the poison cloud to go away, and then fight bone mass while there was nothing else. And I did feel like I was doing a good amount of damage. I didn't feel like I was doing the 70% of damage that I'm supposed to. So in this mode, I don't know if I mentioned it, you only do 70% of damage as a character, which makes it a little bit harder to kill things, obviously, but I really wasn't feeling that, maybe because of my mace being upgraded or something along those lines, but it really was not too bad. I did not get poisoned, but I did get hit by bone mass one time in one of the most terrifying parts of the series leading up to now, and probably one of the closest times to death. But we'll stick with the thing of getting hit by each boss at least once, just so we know how hard it hits, and we were able to complete the bone mass fight without really any problems other than that one time getting smacked. We got our swamp key, we got our bone mass head, and we headed back to base to gear up for the mountains, which would be where our first death took place, and a bunch of other really terrifying events that made me realize how hard some of these worst biomes were going to be for this playthrough, and maybe even make me feel like maybe I knew now what I had gotten myself into. Our start into the mountains was actually pretty good. I did realize how hard everything was hitting, and I knew that fighting a stone golem like I normally do was really not an option. I had an iron buckler made, and that was really the only difference I had from the gear that I fought bone mass with. But our start was really nice. We found 2 silver nodes up right next to each other, also next to a little castle where I could hide, stand on top of to fight drakes inside of, sleep for the night, and store all of my silver, which was all really good things that I needed. However, once I was ready to head down the mountain, I got a little greedy. I decided to go check one building before I went down to see if there were any onion seeds inside of it where a stone golem was sitting outside of. And the stone golem itself necessarily wasn't a problem because I could run away from it, run down the mountain, or possibly fight it if I really had to, but the really big problem was the wolves that were around too, and they were being attracted by the sound of me and that stone golem while I was trying to dodge it and run away, and the stone golem ended up trapping me between two wolves. And now my idea was, and I had done it a few times up until this point, was to just get the stone golem to fight the wolves for me while I booked it in the other direction, trying to get as far away as possible. Unfortunately for me, one of the times the wolves chose me instead of the stone golem. As I was between them, they staggered me as the stone golem's hand came down, and that was the end of that character's life, with all of my iron and everything else on me deleted, the 12 silver that I was trying to bring down, and anything else that I had wanted. Any food, any meads, anything like that was gone. The only upside to this was that most of the silver was still in a chest, meaning if I could get it down the mountain, I would still have something to start with the next day, but we had no gear to get it down the mountain with. We had nothing else up here to try and recover, like a corpse run or anything like that, and it was going to be really difficult to try and get that stuff back if I even wanted to risk it. Episode 7 was all about recovery and trying to learn about how to deal with the death that I had just been given. Now, to be honest, the beginning of the episode was pretty epic. I ran up the mountain, naked, with just a frost resistance mead, a Ratosk mead, and the Eikthyr buff, and a cart. I brought a finewood bow to deal with any wolves that I might see, but I was able to evade literally all of them, weaving between stone golems as they aggroed to me, and grab a cart, put it down, get all of the silver from the mountain in it while completely naked, and make it all the way down the mountain and back to base with said silver. I did die a few more times this episode, but I was able to do things like throw my gear that I had on me, like the original troll hide and bronze stuff from the Black Forest, on the ground to save myself from losing it, and though I lost my skills a few times, I was able to make it back to base with most of my bronze gear still intact, a new finewood bow that I had just crafted, and a bunch of silver. Now, what was I going to do with this silver? Because I had no wolf hide to do it. Now, there was a couple ideas going through my head. I could tame wolves. I could go back up there with a finewood bow naked and try and get them. But I was honestly also thinking that I could just go back to the swamp, rebuild my iron gear, and start again from there. But I also had this silver on me. And I spent probably an hour of this hour-and-a-half episode fighting with myself on what I was going to do, while progressing slightly in my base, making some more food back up, and trying to remake what I could. I was just trying to figure out, what do I do? Do I try and do iron? Do I try and do silver? Is it worth dying this many times and losing my skills? Is it worth going back to get iron if I'm going to die to the same wolf? And I was really struggling with all of those things, trying to figure out what was really going to be the best for me. How was I even going to make it through this series? And if this was how hard mountains got, what was this going to do to me for the rest of this series? Or was I even going to be able to beat it? But luckily, by the end of the episode, my luck had kind of changed a little bit. Not a lot, but I was able to spend some time planning, thinking about what I wanted to do, and just had a little bit better of a feeling at the end of it. And I had some plans with the silver and iron. After spending a lot of time sitting at base, I had a couple good ideas. I had a little bit more iron, so I remade my iron pick. I had a bit of silver that I could smelt, and while I didn't have the hide to turn it into armor, I did have enough stuff to make a Draugr bow, and I had enough extra iron to make a silver sword towards the end of the episode. On top of that, we had a 1-star boar taming, which was going to help with our farm, and I decided to spend pretty much the rest of the episode planning, sitting at base, farming, and smelting that silver. Doing what I could with it, trying to think of the best possible things that I could do to keep myself alive and to recover quickly after dying. And the biggest thing that I came up with was 2 things that I would start in episode 8. I would get all of the iron that I needed for iron gear to head back up the mountain. Now, a lot of me was fighting with, is that even a good idea, or should I just wear the troll hide? It's cheaper, it's lighter, I can move quicker, and really the iron doesn't help me that much. I thought about that, but the biggest thing that was going through my head was if I could just get full silver gear, I might actually be okay up there. Everything's still going to hit ridiculously hard, but I might be okay. And if I had the Draugr fully upgraded and a bunch of obsidian arrows, really I could kill anything before it could kill me. But my biggest thing for that quick recovery was, what if I went up and tamed some wolves? I would be able to have an constant access of hide, and even if it was difficult for me to get silver at other times, I would have something that would allow me to have a renewable resource from a difficult biome that I would not have to go up there to fight for, which would make recovery a little bit easier. So that's what we planned. We sit at base, we made our food, and we made anything that we could to help us do that in episode 8. Episode 8 really surprisingly went pretty perfectly to plan, and it's something I'm going to try not to get used to because it felt really good. We got out to the swamp. It was a new swamp that I hadn't been to. Honestly, I was kind of lost when I found it, but I did figure out where it was later in comparison to Bone Mass and everywhere else that I had gone. And this single swamp crypt on the edge gave us both enough iron to do what we needed to, a good place to stay while we got Guck, and a good chance to test out our silver weapons to see how weak we really were. Now, I was very scared of losing these because I had still just troll hide on, and there was a lot of dangerous stuff in the swamp that could 1 or 2 shot me, but the silver sword as well as the Draugr kept me alive through all of it, and we were able to get enough iron to come back to base with and remake our armor set, even if it wasn't fully upgraded, or remake some of our tools and stuff, and just have a little bit of extra iron around. We needed it for food stuff, we needed it for decoration stuff, and we needed it for our silver sword as well, so we were going to need a lot of it. But the other thing we were able to pick up from this swamp was a decent amount of guck, and guck was what we needed to upgrade our Draugr all the way up to max, where it would actually protect us in the mountains for the second part of our episode 8 plan of taming wolves and returning to the mountains. We were at base for quite a long time, handling all of our farm stuff, breeding and renaming our boar, putting more people on the members and super thanks wall that we had now in our base, and smelting up all of the iron that we had, as well as trying to think of how I was necessarily going to get wolves down the mountain and into a cage to tame them. I knew I was going to have to AFK, but I had never actually tamed wolves before. This was going to be my first time, and so I was trying to figure out how to, what I needed to block them in, what would make them mad and stop them from taming, what food they needed to tame, and how I could get them down the mountain safely without losing all my stuff. I decided on doing the entire thing with no armor and literally just a tiny bit of food, a Ratask meat, and the Eikthyr buff. The idea was to run down the mountain, use the hoe to build it up into a area where it couldn't get out of once it was trapped, have me jump out of the area and then AFK behind a wall inside of a little building that I had made, and it actually worked amazingly. It worked so well that even though I really didn't have that much time left in the episode, I decided to go for a second one. Now there were 2 wolves fairly close to the bottom of the mountain, which was really lucky for me, but it was enough for me to get 2 wolves, bring them back to base, and set up for what would be a wolf breeding pair where we could get all of what we needed for the silver armor, and I was honestly feeling really good about everything we had set up. We got them back at base. We didn't have a pen for them yet or names for them yet, but people are dropping those day in and day out, so thank you guys so much for that. And that was really where we ended our 100 days. That second wolf came up on day 100, which the average day in Valheim, or a full day where you don't sleep, is 30 minutes. Now we have not spent 50 hours in this series, we've probably spent closer to 35, but it's been an insane journey. We've made a ton of really long videos out of it, and we'll go through it here in just a second of how we felt and everything, how the series is going, and where it's going after this. So far, I could not be happier with deciding to do Valheim on its hardest settings. Now, truthfully, a lot of people are quite, I don't know, there's not a lot, but there are quite a few people who have decided that they want to say something that there are no raids, or that we're not on 0.5x, and I truthfully don't care. It will never bother me. I don't think I could handle it, and quite honestly, I think this will probably be the hardest thing I ever even attempt. I don't even know if I'll finish this one. We'll see, but I do got to make good content, and if me dying every single episode is what's happening, then we'll see if I can actually continue it. But I really want to. I am having fun with it, and you guys have dumped so much love and support into these videos that I can do nothing but thank you guys so much. The people that are on the super thanks wall, everybody who's watched and commented, even if the comments were bad, they've still helped the videos, and all of the tips and stuff that I've gotten up until this point. The next couple episodes will be pre-recorded, so anybody that's on the super thanks wall may be slightly delayed, as well as the videos may be a little bit shorter or a little bit less action-packed, because I do have a really big project that I'm working on in the background, and I need a couple of days to work on it without making Valheim videos, so we're pre-recording a couple this week. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm currently trying to make it to 10,000 subscribers. All of the videos mentioned in this one are down in the bottom if you guys want to watch longer sections of them or all of them. There's also a playlist in the description that has all of them if you want to check all of them out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed as much as you guys have enjoyed the series, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.